This is a bit of road infrastructure that you think would help. There's a pedestrian crossing refuge here, but actually the drivers love to race you. I think it's there to try and more control people into Court Lane here. But luckily I'm turning off, because that can be a bit of that road to Court Lane can be a bit of a racetrack sometimes. But this is fairly typical of what I'm trying to do on the way into work, which is to get onto roads that there's less traffic on. So I come into this small housing estate here, and the absence of cars is the greatest virtue along here, mainly because this road just serves the small number of houses that are along here. By the way, on the right, from those trees, there's a cemetery at the ecclesiastical college, and the road comes to an end for car traffic, but you can get through here. Well, you can when that tree is cut back. Quite nice bit of green. You can see it's popular with dog walkers, because there's a bin for them to put the waste in. It is lit at night, but it just bridges between these two housing estates. And again, this is my idea. Let's ride on small areas, and then there's less traffic in order to endanger you as a cyclist. It's interesting, if you're in somewhere like the Netherlands, cyclists would have priorities in these sorts of areas. You can see as the roads filter in, they're imagining that they're going to serve multiple more cars, and so you've got a wider road, and big cars do like to use the full extent of it. I can feel that there's a car behind me now. I'm going to have a sense that there you go. That's an overtake, and that's a close overtake. So one of the things that we could actually do is stop that close overtaking. It's completely pointless as well. You see, it's not just me. That car's being aggressive with the car in front of him as well, trying to ride his back, but completely pointlessly again, because he's turned off. And I'm turning off here, and I have a sense of relief that I am. Another little housing cluster, less cars, and down this bit of the path, if I just get around this, another car. There's another little path through in which I can pretty much start most of half of my journey into work car free. Bit of using the pavement to park on. Down what I tend to call a ginnel. I don't know whether many other people do. And you can see the off-road path start. I don't know whether this is strictly speaking a cycle path, because parallel with me on the other side of the green is the cycle path, but this is definitely shared walking, cycling space, and you can see the sign there to tell us that that's the case. And these lights are shared. Here's our first obstacle. I've learnt the other day this is called a chicane, and this gives you entry to Perry Common Meadows, which is a cycling and walking route. A lot of effort's been spent on this area recently, a lot of money as well. It was just a sort of open tract of grass. I think they actually imagined that this would be a place to drive a motorway through at some of the early stages of planning Birmingham. But it's been rewilded, I think, would be to some extent. So they've dug a lot of areas out, which I think they want to turn into little lakes. They're not actually filling up, so I don't know how successful that's being. But lots of tree planting going on. You can imagine what this is going to be like in a few years' time, a little avenue. And in many ways, it's just a wonderful way to start the commute into work. But the most recent thing is this path originally was just black tarmac, but a few weeks ago they dumped a load of grit on it with some tar, and it is not good under the wheels. If you like gravel riding, this is probably the way to come. I think we came on the day or the day after that it had been laid. It was just spitting up pea grit at me all the time. My wife laughed because she rides with mud guards, and it wasn't so bad for her, but I don't have mud guards, and it was coming up everywhere. The reason I'm coming off the grass here, this is that path was like before they put the shingle down. But I'm cutting off here because I want to avoid a chicane, that metal chicane that they've fitted in that you can hardly get round on their bike. There is a chicane here, but I can actually ride this fairly fluently through, and it puts me into this car park, and the journey I've got to cross quite a few busy roads. If the traffic's really dense here, I tend to just go down the pavement because there's another crossing, but usually I can get a gap like this, and you can see this is not really designed as the route through, but you can probably see lots of other cyclists have come this way. We're on to another area now that we can ride through. This isn't the Perry Common Meadows, but it's one of a series of lakes and green spaces that you can ride through. I don't know whether we can quite see on the sign, but they constitute the Sustrans National Cycle Path 535. I often actually turn to the left when I'm on my commute. I'm coming the right way round the lakes, which is a little bit longer. This path's a bit narrower, but there was somebody on a bike coming the other direction, and it's another one of the very narrow spaces to go through, so I think I've just been a bit lazy really in coming this way, but it's you can see it's a nice day. People are enjoying the sun. I like to say hello to everybody as I pass, or good morning is what I normally say, just to reinforce the idea that cyclists are nice people who are part of the community of users. I think that's really quite important. The feeling of riding on your bike is much closer to being with people, and being boxed in a car often gives you the sensation that, you know, this is something that you're in control of and you have a right to go through. And I think a lot of behaviour of drivers towards pedestrians and cyclists comes from that mentality. I'm not saying cyclists can't get their own version of it, but I'm really trying to feel part of what's going on in the areas that I ride through. Again, there's this obsession that somebody might come through here, but I suppose there could be a car, but those posts are a little bit dangerous. If you're riding your bike, they could be doing with putting some yellow paint on them or something like that, just to show that they are there. But honestly, you couldn't really ask for better than this. Cycling in the sun, the dappled shade of the trees. Now we're just coming to a sort of a weir where I think it's the Plants Brook, this feeds into the lakes. And
bike on your right.
This is where I would normally have come, so I'm rejoining the slightly wider path down off the weir, and you can go nicely through this space. This is probably the nicest bit of the route, the bit I like the most. And we're going to come up to another road junction in a minute. And there has been some planning gone into that, so you'll see that there's another pedestrian crossing here that's controlled by lights, and they've built in a light for cycles as well. It doesn't give you any precedent or anything like that, or any greater priority. It changes exactly the same time as it would for a pedestrian, but I suppose they're just trying to signal that the crossing is as much for people cycling. But then again, they create these obstacles. It's nowhere as bad as the other ones. But when there's nobody coming, I just nip across there in that way. Here, I was thinking that van might have stopped for me, but it didn't. Sometimes they do. But you can see the other one of the other routes in. If I wasn't cycling, is this one. I didn't even bother to press. Well, maybe I did. I don't know, but I sometimes press. But you can see more shared cycle and pedestrian crossings, and through to a little bit of a road. The actual cycle path goes round the other side of these trees and this grassed area, which seems a little bit of a strange thing, but I suppose it is taking you down under the motorway. We're going to end this section of the ride at the motorway, but I've got the possibility to go into Whitton Lakes. Again, you can see these are signposted as the 535, and there the metal post did at least have a blue sticker to say it was a national cycleway, and also just alerted to you as a cyclist to the fact it's sticking out there in the middle of the path. So this is another path, but a much older area of lakes. Again, if I'm doing a leisure ride, I tend to go off to the left there, go round the lakes, and come back on this side of the path that we're going now. But I just cycle along here. I think when people imagine that they could cycle into the city centre from the north of the city, they really didn't think that it could be quite as good as this. And this path really recommends itself. What would happen if a larger number of people cycled along here? I have to say I've been doing this route regularly now. Certainly I did it for the whole of lockdown when I was coming in. Started well before that period. Was really anticipating the changes the Birmingham City Council were making to bring to try and control traffic in the centre. Here is another cyclist then, just to show you that other people use it. Actually, you'd normally get far more cyclists, given that this is World Car Free Day. I'd have thought I'd have seen more cyclists on my route rather than less than I normally do. But they're trying to control cars in the city centre. The first act is to have a sort of a clean air area, and so I thought, well, I've got to take notice of this. My car actually has very low emissions, but I thought, no, I've got to use this as the stimulus to start riding in. And I really didn't imagine that the route would be like it is, and but where I'm speaking about what the road's like up till now. Oh, that's good. I actually used the mini roundabout as you're supposed to, and didn't cut right through the centre of it or anything. Embarrass myself. And now I've got a bit of a climb, and this is where we're going to part one, because I'm just about coming up to the motorway when that cuts Birmingham in half, the M6 motorway, and I've got a bit of a drop down. So that's the first part. That's the first 15 minutes anyway of my journey into work. It doesn't half change dramatically from this point onwards as I go under the M6, so I'll post that next one and I hope you get round to seeing that. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.